Good afternoon, everyone. In today's video, I'm going to introduce you to our new nightly reversal list, and this is a list of stocks which we'll send out Monday through Thursday to all of our Stock Volatility Box members. In today's video, I'll show you what this list is, the logic behind this setup, how to use this list, and we'll take a look at today's list that's going to be sent out to all members, so we can go through every single stock, and there's 4 in today, together, and you get an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the setup is really meant to take advantage of the extreme daily moves. We had the nightly trending list first, which this setup will now replace. The nightly trending list was really useful in that post-COVID volatility, where we saw a lot of momentum-based moves. We were looking at stocks in which we saw strength, and we were expecting that strength to continue. For this particular setup, we're now looking for stocks in which we're seeing some sort of a pullback, and we're looking at that pullback to show us signs of exhausting and eventually leading to a reversal, thus the name Nightly Reversal List. Now, let me show you the logic behind this setup first, and we can do that by walking through a real example. I've already mentioned this is a trend reversal setup. We'll send this again to all Stock Volatility Box members, just like the trending list at around 7:05 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Thursday. Now, the logic behind this is really twofold. First, I'm looking for all stocks and sometimes even ETFs which are closing inside of their aggressive daily volatility box models. If you're on the live scanner, all volatility box members, you can look towards the end of the day, and all of the stocks which are still open on the scanner are the ones that I'm usually going to start with as my starting point for building this list. After that, there's a lot of manual intervention where I'll pick and choose based off of really factor number 2, which is now bringing together longer time frame levels. I'll look at things like pullback to the market pulse and existing trends, maybe support and resistance levels that are just long standing. And if we look at this example inside of Ford, that's exactly what we have here. This setup, or Ford rather, would have been a stock on our nightly reversal list with this green bar. If we take a look at the intraday activity for this green bar, here's what it looked like. Price action closed inside of our aggressive volatility box clouds. We didn't go outside of the clouds. We didn't hit the target. In both cases here, we saw price just consolidate. If we take a look to see how price consolidates for a few days after that, 1, 2, 3, just a lot of sideways action, and I'll show you the chart in just a second, before we see in that true overbought reversal come into full gear. And that's really what this list of stocks is meant to help identify. You'll see that it's useful for not just the very next day, but it's really useful to just turn into your watch list of stocks that you're monitoring for a reversal. And I'll show you ways to take advantage of that, both on intraday basis along with slightly larger time frame charts as well in today's video. Now, I think the best way to illustrate this setup is by taking a look at an example. And here's an example of tonight's list. This is the actual list that we're going to be sending out to all of our Stock Volatility Box members. There's 4 stocks in today's list. For our oversold stocks, we have 3. Oversold stocks are the ones that I think most of us are going to have a preference for. These are stocks in which we're looking for a long side opportunity. And we'll also have an overbought list whenever appropriate. And in today's case, we have 1 overbought stock in which we're looking for a bearish reversal, so a short side bias. I know a lot of folks don't like to short, and a lot of these stocks don't necessarily have the greatest option liquidity, so that's where I imagine the oversold list will be the one that's used most frequently. Now let's go through all 4 of today's stocks in more detail, and before we even start with APTV, we'll start with taking a look at Ford so you can see how that volatility looked like after the day it would have hit our nightly reversal list. Okay, so coming inside of Ford, if I come into a 5-minute time frame chart and I load in our volatility box models, here's the day in which Ford breached our volatility box models and we closed inside of there into the close. Now this day is our first sign that, hey, we officially think we're starting to enter overbought territory. We're seeing prices hit these levels. We didn't really see buyers push through. We didn't see sellers push through. We need to find some sign of being in overbought, oversold territory. Now on the daily time frame, that overlapped really nicely with this resistance level right here near the $13 major price point. You can see how it's been tagged before, and we were coming right up into it one more time. Now, if we come into the 1 hour time frame, that's what I imagine for those of you that are looking at trying to take advantage of this setup for at least a slightly longer time frame period, not minutes rather, but at least let's say a day, maybe at least a few hours. I think the 1 hour time frame is one of the cleaner ways to take advantage of this by simply just using the 1 hour edge signal to confirm when we're officially in, say, overbought or oversold territory and looking for that reversal to kick in. So here's the example from Ford with that 1 hour time frame chart. This happened after we hit 13, and that's really the price level that was where all of this began. We had price hit our volatility box zones, getting pretty dang close to major resistance. We're looking at that resistance, we're seeing this chop come in, and we get our overbought confirmation before all of that even happens. You can zoom in for those of you that are smaller time frame traders to something like a 15-minute, take advantage of the same signals, or even a 30-minute to try and get a little bit more granular if you'd like to pinpoint that. So if we use that same logic and we now come into our list of stocks from today, we have APTV, and let me load in our volatility box models for tonight's list. APTV, if we start with the daily time frame, the reason why I liked it on the daily time frame, we're starting to see a confluence of 1, 2, and 3 oversold confirmation signals, which is telling us we're looking for some sort of a bounce from this level. That key price area where all of this seems to be happening seems to be right around 76.38 is the gap fill. So between there to 76 seems to be a place where we would expect price to stabilize and see some buyers step in. It seems to be a previous support area. If we come into the 5-minute time frame chart to see how that volatility ended for the day, you can see how price closed, and we tagged our aggressive models right into that final candle for the close. So now we're looking for price to show us signs of consolidating here. We saw the levels near that 76 zone. We see where that confluence is coming in from our daily time frame chart, and we're looking at this at holding the base and seeing some potential sign of being in this case, oversold territory and looking at price to reverse. That's how I would play this setup inside of APTV. Next up, we have Coherent Corp, starting with the daily time frame here first. And let me bring in our market pulse as well. It's really going to usually be the market pulse, some sort of pullback retracement level, along with support and resistance levels that I'm going to be looking for on the daily time frame. And on Coherent here, if we take a look, we can see we have a bullish market pulse. Definitely have seen a little bit of chop, but currently we're pulling back to the market pulse line near that key 60 area. Also happens to be a gap fill. Another place where if price started to show signs of consolidating, would make a lot of sense to see a bounce from the 60 zone. To confirm that, again, come into something like the 1 hour, or if you're a slightly smaller time frame trader, the 30 or the 15-minute time frame, and use the edge signal to confirm the overbought oversold moves. So Coherent, number 2, and you can see where the bias comes in from the daily time frame, looking to take advantage of this sell-off with today's candle down almost 4%. Next up, we have Matador. If we take a look at Matador, here we have one fib level 2 that I've been able to draw. That's near 64.60. Same idea, looking for price to come inside of where previously we've seen a little bit of chop and see price exhaust. Let us see signs of that on either the 1 hour or the 15 or the 30-minute. Here, after market, you can see price is already broken outside of the clouds. So if we see price stabilize near 64.60, that's where I think this gets a little bit more interesting. And we're there in the after hours activity as of right now. Finally, we move on to our one short side candidate, which was Tandem Diabetes. If we zoom in, this isn't easy to borrow stock, which is something I try to find for any short side candidates, but you still see where the risk is involved on a smaller stock like this. Here, the overall resistance level that I have is near 35.72. That's a little bit above where price action is currently trading. However, if you were to come into something like the weekly time frame chart, I think that helps illustrate why I think where previously you've seen sellers kick into full gear to close out this week, you might very well see sellers come right back in bringing what would just be price back to our market pulse line, but that's still bearish activity and a nice way to take advantage of any short side interest really above this 34 level that we see on the daily time frame. So there you have it. That was a walkthrough of the 4 stocks that we have in today's pick for our oversold, overbought candidates. Hopefully walking through the logic, seeing how our volatility box levels overlap with the daily zones, the key daily areas that I'd be looking at for each of these, helps give you an idea of how you can use this list yourself to take advantage of stocks throughout the week instead of just the very next day. And instead of just for day trades, you can turn these into some nicer, longer term winners as well. I hope you found today's video useful for all Stock Volatility Box members. I'll keep making more videos for daily lists so we can just get more and more exposure to different ways to use this list to our advantage. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in our next update.